Wu Zetian, the only woman to rule China as emperor. The Great Hall stood silent in the year 690. Officials in heavy silk robes lowered their heads, careful not to reveal fear or surprise. Outside, the capital of Luoyang waited in uneasy silence, while drums echoed through the palace walls. Then the announcement came. Wu Zetian no longer ruled as a queen or an empress. She had declared herself Emperor of China. It was a title no woman had ever claimed before. One word challenged centuries of tradition. One decision changed the history of an empire that believed such a thing was impossible. Yet the greatest question had never been whether she could take the throne. It had always been how she reached it, and why history remembered her more as a villain than a ruler. Many people remembered Wu Zetian as a cruel woman who climbed to power through murder and fear. Popular stories painted her as a monster who destroyed anyone standing in her way. That picture was never the whole truth. Some accusations appeared only after her death, written by historians who believed no woman should have ruled at all. Others were based on real acts of ruthless politics that many male emperors also practiced without receiving the same lasting hatred. This story revealed a brilliant strategist, an unexpected reformer, and a ruler whose greatest enemy was not only her rivals, but tradition itself. Was Wu Zetian a ruthless tyrant, or the victim of history's deepest prejudice? Long before she wore the imperial crown, China belonged to the mighty Tang Dynasty. It was one of the richest and most powerful kingdoms on earth. Trade flowed along the Silk Road. Poetry, art, and learning reached remarkable heights. Yet behind the beauty of the empire stood strict rules. Men ruled, women obeyed. A noble family's daughter could receive an education, but power remained firmly in male hands. Even an empress usually acted beside the emperor, never above him. One surprising fact often escaped notice. Tang women enjoyed greater freedom than many women in later Chinese dynasties. They rode horses, played polo, and sometimes managed estates. Even so, becoming emperor remained beyond imagination. Wu Zhao, later known as Wu Zetian, entered the palace as a teenage concubine of Emperor Taizong. She possessed neither the highest rank nor the strongest family. At first, she seemed destined to disappear among hundreds of palace women. But the palace was not simply a home. It was a battlefield without swords. Everything changed after Taizong died. According to custom, childless concubines entered Buddhist monasteries. Wu shaved her head and disappeared behind temple walls. Most stories would have ended there. Instead, fate returned her to the palace when the new emperor, Gaozong, brought her back. Few people realized that this quiet return marked the beginning of one of history's greatest political careers. Her first great test arrived quickly. Powerful ministers dismissed her as harmless. They underestimated her intelligence. Step by step, she gained Gaozong's trust while defeating rivals at court. Then came the darkest accusation. Later writers claimed she murdered her own baby daughter to blame the empress and seize power. Modern historians remain deeply divided because no reliable evidence from the time proved the story. It might have been true, or it might have been political propaganda created decades later. If even that famous tale remained uncertain, how many other stories deserved another look? As Emperor Gaozong grew ill, Wu increasingly governed the empire herself. She studied reports, questioned officials, and made decisions that affected millions. One court observer admitted that the emperor merely nodded while she decided. The turning point arrived after Gaozong's death. Rather than surrender authority to weaker rulers, she carefully removed rivals, strengthened loyal supporters, and finally declared a new Zhou Dynasty under her own name. No woman before her had crossed that line. At the height of her power, Wu Zetian ruled an empire of more than 50 million people. She expanded the civil service examinations, allowing talented men from modest families to rise through ability instead of noble birth. She supported agriculture, reduced certain taxes, and encouraged Buddhism, which offered religious arguments supporting her rule. Yet greatness demanded a terrible price. Secret police spread fear across the empire. Political enemies disappeared into prisons. Some were executed after questionable trials. Even trusted allies never knew whether they remained safe. The woman who challenged old injustice also created new fear. Could such power have been held without cruelty, or had power itself changed her? The beginning of the end came quietly. Age weakened her body. Illness limited her strength. Court officials who had once feared her now waited for the right moment. In 705, they forced the aging emperor to surrender the throne. Soon afterward, Wu Zetian died peacefully, ending one of the most extraordinary lives in Chinese history. Her story had closed where it had begun, in a palace filled with silent observers watching power change hands once again. The answer to the central question was neither simple nor comfortable. Wu Zetian had been both ruthless and remarkable. She committed harsh acts that history could not ignore, yet she also carried the burden of judgments that many male rulers escaped. Her gender shaped both her rise and her reputation. Without Wu Zetian, Chinese history would have looked very different. The imperial examination system became stronger. Government welcomed more talented officials from ordinary families. Buddhism gained lasting influence at court. Most importantly, she proved that political ability could challenge even the oldest traditions. History remembered her with suspicion because she broke a rule many believed could never be broken. Yet the facts revealed something greater than myth. She bent the course of one of the world's greatest civilizations through intelligence, determination, and extraordinary courage. Perhaps that was why her name remained impossible to forget. So what deserved greater weight? The fear she created, or the reforms she left behind? That question still divided historians today. And perhaps Wu Zetian should not only be remembered as the only woman who ruled China as emperor, she should also be remembered as the ruler who forced history itself to defend its own judgments. If stories like hers revealed the hidden truths behind great civilizations, then this journey had only just begun. Subscribe and continue uncovering the forgotten lives that shaped the ancient world.